Welcome to the deep dive. So glad you're with us today. We're diving into something, well, everyone knows it. Family. It's a word we use constantly, right? But behind it, there are all these complexities, these routines, the real day-to-day stuff. Okay, so let's try and unpack this. The mission today. Get into the practical side, the lived reality of family, and then connect that to the language we use, for our closest relationships.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating, I think, is how these two sources work together. Even though they're different formats, one's a conversation, one's a lesson,
Yeah.
they give us this really complete view of the family ecosystem. You get the nuts and bolts, the daily grind, and then also the words, the tools to actually describe it all.
That's a great way to put it, family ecosystem. And thinking about that easy English source, the detail is something else, isn't it? Like that breakfast. Let's kick things off there with the rhythms and realities. Tell us about that morning routine.
Right, the breakfast. It seems simple, but the details, wow. A bagel with eggs, bacon, and cream cheese.
Mhm.
Okay, specific. But then the smoothie, strawberry, blueberry, fine, but they specify frozen strawberries, blueberries, almond milk, Greek yogurt.
Kind of leaving the banana out.
Yes, to let the flavors of the berries shine. And maybe cinnamon, it's small, but it shows this deliberateness, this care. Even in breakfast, sets a tone.
It really does. And from that careful breakfast, they jump into this huge, big, clean day. What stood out to you there? It wasn't just cleaning, was it?
No, not at all. It was the organization of it. The division of labor was super clear. The kids had very specific jobs for their rooms, clear the beds, chairs, under the beds.
Making beds, vacuuming.
Right, fresh linens, dusting shelves, putting books away, wiping down dressers. It's quite the list.
And then the parents.
They tackled the bigger stuff. Several loads of laundry. The kitchen and the dining room, living room, and the big one, the attic. Apparently it was getting full up there.
Ah, the attic. The final frontier for clutter.
Exactly. And that's where you see this really practical problem solving.
The three piles.
Yeah. The keep, donate, or sell, and trash system. So simple, so effective. And they found some sentimental items while they were at it.
Which they kept, right?
Yes. And the stuff to get rid of, they planned a garage sale next weekend.
See, that's turning a chore into, well, a plan, even a potential moneymaker. Very practical. Okay, so after all that cleaning, the universal question hits, dinner. What was the dinner dilemma in this family?
Oh, it was classic. No groceries left. Nobody wants to cook. Sound familiar?
Absolutely. So ordering out.
Yep. But then the debate starts.
Yeah.
Chinese food gets vetoed.
Yeah.
Apparently it was greasy last time. And delivery took ages.
Fair enough. What else?
There's a new Greek restaurant downtown. Supposedly very fast delivery.
What?
But
Yeah.
someone doesn't like garlic.
Always something. So what was the final verdict?
Pica, the great equalizer.
Of course. Any specific requests?
Oh, yeah. Hawaiian and chicken pizza, and naturally pepperoni. Covering bases. It really shows that family negotiation piece, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, that decision to order out kind of leads us into another area this source touched on. Practical skills, maybe even financial stuff, like the clothes dryer breaking down.
Right. And the dad decides he can fix it himself. His reasoning. He comes from a long line of handymen.
I loved that detail.
Me too. His dad fixed lawnmowers, cars, appliances. His grandfather was a house builder. Even his uncles built boats and made furniture. It's like this legacy of being handy.
So did he manage it?
He did. He watched an instructional video, mixing old skills with new tech, and swapped out the moisture sensor. Problem solved.
Nice. That DIY attitude also showed up in their plans for the house, right? Redecorating?
Yeah, but in a practical way, not a huge renovation. They're planning to fix up the wood floor, use some paint for the walls, get new curtains, and also redecorate the hallway in a more traditional way.
So no new carpets or anything major?
No, keeping it manageable. And they know the practical steps, like needing to scrape off all the loose flakes of paint first. Grounded approach.
Very grounded. Okay, now, let's shift to something maybe a bit more sensitive, but the source went there, the household budget. What did you make of that section? It was surprisingly open.
It really was. Almost uncomfortably honest, you could say. They didn't just talk about budgeting. They listed the numbers. They found they were overspending, and they had the figures. $850 on our home loan payment, $300 on groceries, $111 on utilities.
$250 on gasoline, $200 on clothes, it goes on. $100 on books, $150 on cell phones, $400 on entertainment.
Right. Total spent. $2,361. They'd save $500. Paychecks were $3,000.
But there was that gap, wasn't there? The missing receipts.
Exactly. $239 they couldn't account for. It just highlights that need for financial tracking as a family unit. It's about accountability.
Definitely. And facing that reality led them straight into solutions, right? Especially for that high electricity bill.
Yeah, their bill was double the normal amount, apparently, so they came up with some really concrete steps.
Like what?
Okay, unplugging things not in use standard advice, but important. Adjusting the water heater temp to 48 degrees C. Doing laundry using cold water. Running full loads instead of lots of small ones.
Smart. What about heating and cooling?
Adjusting the thermostat. 18 degrees C during the winter, 24 degrees C during the hot summer days, and switching to LED light bulbs, noting they save 4 to 6 times the energy. Really practical stuff.
It is. It shows they're serious about tackling it. And rounding out the practical side, there was the grocery list itself.
Ah, yes, the list. Also very detailed.
What did it tell you?
Well, it showed a balance. Protein. Pork. Fish, specifically. 4 pieces of salmon fillet and 4 pieces of cod fillet. Veggies. Carrots, potatoes, cabbage, and lettuce. Essentials like milk. Spices like ground pepper and garlic. Some treats chocolate cookies, but also fruit, apples and bananas, and 2 loaves of bread.
And that interesting choice about drinks.
Right. They specifically listed bottled water instead of soft drinks. A conscious health choice right there on the list.
So all these practical things, the budget, the cleaning, the groceries, the repairs, that's the fabric of daily family life. But how do we actually talk about it all? That's where the Oxford Online English source comes in, doesn't it?
It does. It shifts us from the doing to the describing. It gives us the language tools. It points out, you can just say there are 5 people in my family.
But it's better to be more specific.
Much better. Like, there are 10 people in my family. I have 2 sisters, 1 brother, my uncle and aunt, 2 grandparents, and my parents, of course. It paints a picture.
And it makes that key distinction, immediate versus extended family. Can you remind us what that covers?
Sure. Immediate family is typically, you, your spouse or partner, your children, your parents, brothers and sisters, your core unit. Extended family is broader. Aunts, uncles, cousins, nephews, nieces, grandparents, grandchildren.
That's a really helpful distinction for clarity.
Definitely. And the source gives that example of being an only child, but having a lot of cousins who feel like siblings, which shows how those lines can feel sometimes.
Okay, so then it gets into describing siblings. What advice does it give beyond just the number?
It suggests adding details like if they're older or younger, and where you are in the family. Are you the youngest, the middle child, the oldest? The example given is having a sister who is 5 years older. Instantly, you understand more about that relationship dynamic.
Makes sense. And what about talking about children? Same idea and context.
Exactly. Don't just say, I have 2 kids. Add some life to it. Like, my eldest daughter's just started secondary school. Or, we have a newborn son. He's just 3 weeks old.
Or looking ahead.
Yeah, my wife's expecting our 2nd child. We'll find out the gender in 3 months. These details make it real and engaging for the listener.
Right. And finally, it covered how to describe your relationship with your family. What's the key there?
It's about the connection, the interaction, not just who they are, but how often you see them and what you like to do together.
Can you give some examples from the source?
Sure. Things like, I'm very close to my family. We have lunch together every weekend at my grandmother's house. That says a lot. Or, I see my older brother once a week. We play tennis or basketball together. Specific activities.
And it mentioned ways to add even more nuance.
Yeah, like if a family member lives far away. My brother lives overseas, but we talk on Skype every so often. Or simple shared activities. Playing cards, watching films, going to the park with the kids. It's about showing the relationship in action. So if we kind of pull all this together, what we've seen is that family life is this really intricate mix, this tapestry, right? It's routines, chores, budgets, repairs, but it's also relationships. And language is what lets us actually describe that tapestry.
Yeah.
From the tiny detail in a smoothie
Yeah.
to managing the household finances together and then finding the right words to introduce your sister or talk about your kids starting school. It's all connected.
So, thinking about this for you, the listener, what's the takeaway? It means whether you're dealing with the daily tasks, planning things out, or just chatting with someone, understanding both sides, the practical doing of family and the language for describing it, really equips you. It helps you make sense of it all and talk about it clearly. And here's something to maybe mull over after this. Think about how that communication works in these examples. How does a family talking about a grocery list, or who cleans what, or how to save electricity? How does that collaboration, or maybe sometimes the lack of it, reflect the deeper dynamics, the strengths, the challenges in their relationships? What stands out to you about how these families operate and communicate, and how might that make you think about your own daily interactions and the words you use to describe them?